Okay, let's dive in. Today we're unpacking a really common but often confusing topic, managing hypothyroidism.
Yeah, and our sources really get into these standard treatments, but also why just taking the medication doesn't always, fix how you feel.
Exactly. So our goal here is to pull out the key ideas from this material, kind of get under the surface of managing this condition.
And understand why it can still be a puzzle for so many.
Right. So the basics, according to these sources, your thyroid isn't making enough hormone. It mostly produces T4, which is sort of the storage form.
And a smaller bit of T3, the active hormone your body actually uses.
And when those levels drop, the pituitary gland sends out TSH, thyroid-stimulating hormone, to tell the thyroid, hey, make more.
Right. And the standard approach typically is that daily pill, levothyroxine. It's basically replacing the T4 your thyroid isn't making enough of.
But here's where it gets tricky, and the sources really highlight this. A lot of people on levothyroxine still have those classic symptoms.
Oh yeah, the fatigue, the brain fog, maybe hair loss, feeling depressed, constipation, just feeling off.
Even when their standard lab tests, the TSH and maybe T4 look normal.
Exactly. It's that real disconnect. The numbers look okay, but you don't feel okay.
And the sources seem to suggest a big reason for this might be how well your body converts that T4 medication, the inactive stuff.
Into the active T3 that your cells actually need to function.
Okay, so the body has to do that conversion step.
It does. And several things can get in the way, according to what we looked at. First up, surprisingly maybe, is gut health.
Gut health, how does that connect?
Well, it turns out healthy gut bacteria actually help convert some inactive thyroid hormone into active T3 right there in your gut.
Huh.
So if your gut microbiome is off, or if you've got gut inflammation, that can really slow down the conversion. Plus, gut problems can increase cortisol.
That's source hormone.
Right, which also messes with thyroid hormones. It tends to lower the active T3 and increase something called reverse T3, which is inactive.
Wow, okay. So, your gut health can directly impact whether your thyroid meds are actually usable by your body. That's significant.
It really is. And that cortisol link brings up another factor, adrenal stress.
Okay.
Just general chronic stress, raising cortisol levels,
Yeah.
does a similar thing. It reduces the active T3 available in your tissues and pushes up that inactive reverse T3.
So stress can make it seem like your thyroid levels are okay on a basic test, but your cells aren't getting what they need.
That seems to be the mechanism the sources point to, yeah.
And inflammation. That seems like a recurring theme here, too.
Absolutely critical. Systemic inflammation, like body-wide inflammation, really gums up the works for T4 to T3 conversion.
How so?
The sources mention inflammatory markers actually interfere with the main enzymes your body uses for that conversion process.
Okay.
So even if you have enough T4 floating around from your medication, inflammation makes it harder to turn it into the active T3 you need. Reducing inflammation seems key.
Given all these conversion issues, what about treatments beyond just the standard T4 pill? Do the sources talk about adding T3?
They do. They mention that levothyroxine, just the T4, is the standard approach. But they reviewed studies looking at adding T3 medication alongside T4.
Oh, what did they find?
Kind of mixed results, honestly. Some studies showed maybe some benefit for symptoms or quality of life. Others didn't really show a difference compared to T4 alone. And the sources often noted the quality of that evidence was maybe low to moderate. So routine use of combination T4-T3 isn't generally the first step. Research is still ongoing there.
So it's not a simple fix.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And the sources are really clear. Figuring out the right approach needs a proper assessment by your doctor, looking at your specific situation.
Makes sense. Okay, so beyond meds, what about lifestyle stuff? Diet. The sources mention inflammation again.
Yeah, managing diet and stress comes up. Specifically for inflammation, the idea is cutting out common trigger foods, things like gluten, dairy, maybe soy, sugar, alcohol, processed stuff.
Any specific dietary approaches mentioned?
An anti-inflammatory approach, like the autoimmune paleo diet or AIP, was mentioned as potentially helpful for some people.
Okay. And what about supplements? Did the sources highlight any specific ones?
A few came up. Selenium was discussed for general thyroid support, maybe helping with antibodies, although one source noted trials didn't show a clear benefit over placebo for that.
Right.
Zinc was mentioned because low levels might hinder T3 production. Vitamin D came up as potentially anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
And glutathione was noted for helping with the chemical reactions in hormone conversion and also being anti-inflammatory.
Anything else? What about iodine? People sometimes ask about that.
Yeah, the sources had a really important caution there. Iodine supplements should only be considered if you're known to be deficient, like maybe based on where you live. Otherwise, it's generally not recommended and could even be harmful for some thyroid conditions.
Good to know. And of course, the usual advice applies.
Absolutely. Talk to your doctor before starting any supplements. Essential.
So wrapping this up, what's the big picture, the main takeaway from this deep dive?
I think it's that managing hypothyroidism effectively, especially the symptoms, often means looking beyond just that TSH number.
Right.
It's about understanding this whole T4 to T3 conversion process and how things like your gut health, your stress levels, and inflammation can really be roadblocks affecting how you actually feel every day.
So a final thought for you listening. If your lab tests look normal, but you're still not feeling right, maybe exploring these other factors, the conversion piece, gut health, stress, inflammation, could give you and your doctor a more complete view of your thyroid health journey.